If you guys are ready, we're going to get started. And I just want to thank everybody that's on the call today. And we're so excited that you guys have agreed to be with us today. And I want to say a special thanks to Kentucky Bank, who's our sponsor for today. And then I just want to introduce the two of you. I know everybody knows who you are, but I don't want to just assume that everybody knows everything. So I think it's, as you know, respect for your all's positions and the all that you have to offer. We just want to make sure people know that our superintendent, Dr. Gilliam, is a lifelong resident of Madison County. He started his career in education in 1992 as a teacher and a coach. He served as principal from 2007 to 2013 at Madison Southern. He moved to central office in 2013, and then he became our superintendent of schools in 2018. And we are so pleased to have you, Mr. Gilliam, on our call, and then just being able to kind of help our chamber members to understand kind of what's going on. And I asked Samantha Burford if she would help to moderate this, and she's going to do most of the moderating. And I just thought it made perfect sense. This is kind of her forte anyway, but also just the fact that she, serves on our school board. This is her 4th year on the Madison County School Board, and she's representing District 1. And last year she was the vice chair, and she is the chair this year. So congratulations to you in that position. And thank you, Samantha, for all that you do to serve our community. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. And we had several people who sent questions. And so we have turned those in to Dr. Gilliam. And so he knows basically what you guys had to ask. So I want to go ahead and turn it over to them.
All right. Thank you, Mindy. And we appreciate everybody watching. We think this is going to be a great turnout today. There's a lot of parents out there that have a lot of questions, and rightfully so. So we're excited and thankful that the Richmond Chamber of Commerce is willing to do this and put it out there for us, because we really want to get the answers out there. We want parents to know, and we want to be as helpful as possible. And I appreciate Dr. Gilliam willing to do this, because he's the answer guy. He knows everything. So we all turn to him. So
thank you. I hope we're able to provide some answers around this whole piece. There's there's still a lot of unknowns, but we'll do our very best to. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here and to have this opportunity to address the chamber, but also our entire community. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's get started with the first question. I know we're excited to be here, like we said. So I think the best place to start is let's discuss the 3 options that were given to our parents, and they got to vote and choose what fits best for them. So I know that we have the in-person attendance, the interactive distance learner, and then the independent distant learning. So Dr. Gilliam, do you mind explaining to parents? I know the voting ended yesterday, I believe, so let's go over those briefly just to start us off.
Okay, sure. I'll talk about those 3. In order to get there, though, let me take just a moment to address, I guess, kind of our process behind this planning piece. Back in June, on I think June the 2nd, we released a survey to our community, and it was very widely received. We had a lot of input on that. And we asked them the different types of models that families would prefer. So we had that piece out, and we gathered a lot of data on what we thought or what people had told us that they would prefer in the different options. So then we worked to build these 3 options just based off of that first piece of data. We wanted to see what was possible, and we knew going into this from our conversations, but just a general knowledge of our community, a one-size-fits-all approach would not work. So we wanted to make sure that we gave our parents options, because every family's in a different situation based on the number of children that they have, the ages of those children, their personal work schedules, and all of those different things. So that was taken into consideration. And as we look at, once we gather that, we develop these 3 pieces. I also want people to know that this is just a beginning part of fully developing our plan. We wanted to launch these out and make sure that everyone understood as much information as he could about those three options. And then we're asking families to indicate, and that was what we did with their questionnaire, to indicate which of those options they prefer for their child. And then once we get that information, then we go to our next phases of planning. And there's really three phases of planning. You know, there's the initial piece, which has been released. Then once we get our data back, there's some district decisions that we make based off of that. And then each individual school is going to make a plan. So as we go through questions and as we have a conversation with our community, there's a lot of times we may say, well, we don't know the answer to that yet. And that's why we've not got to that point in the planning process. And if you look across the state at the different districts and the different plans that are being released and different things that people are saying, in all honesty, Madison County is probably further along than a lot of districts across, in particular districts our size. We are the 9th largest school district in the state, and with that brings some, a few complications, I guess, or complexities that smaller districts don't necessarily have. And I've seen some plans that are pretty complete, but most of those are coming from schools that have an entire population of maybe 700 or 800 in their whole district. So when you're building one for 12,000 families and across our county, it becomes a little more complex. So with all that being said, a lot is still to be determined, but our three options that we released and that we ask parents to respond to. And also, let me take just a second. I sent out a letter yesterday and mentioned this, thanking our community and parents for their response. The response to that questionnaire was overwhelming, really. Typically in that type of format, your first try at it, you get around 50%. It's kind of a good number. We were over 80% in our first week. We requested. So, and as of this morning, we left it open through. We extended a few days because there are a few families that we we started contacting. We'd like just a couple more days to get that in. So we extended it through today, and we had just under 10,000 responses by 2 days. So very good response. We appreciate everyone out there. But the three options, the first one is in person. And I think we all kind of know what that is. We also, though, have to realize that in person this school year and under these current circumstances will look a little different than what it has in previous years, but it is in-person instruction. Then we wanted to make sure that families had virtual options if they did not feel comfortable sending their children into a school environment with a lot of people. So we developed two virtual options. So option 2 is what we called an interactive, and I say virtual, distance learning is a better description. Option 2 is interactive distance learning. And then we have option 3, which is independent distance learning. And the difference between those two, obviously in neither one of those, in both of those, students will be learning from home and not in the school building. But the main difference between those two is, what do you want your daily schedule to look like? If you want your child to remain in a fixed schedule and have specific times that they are turning on their computer, that they are engaged with an instructor and with some other students, and they have assignments, they could actually have formative assessment and questions going back and forth during that class time. If that's the model that you want, then that's the interactive distance learning model. The independent one it's probably a little closer to what we experienced last year with the NTI piece. Okay, their students will be given a work to do, and that independent piece, probably the majority of it will be an online piece. But for those who don't have connectivity, internet connectivity, or devices at home, we will provide some paper copies. So they'll be working through workbook or a paper curriculum. Most of them will be working through some type of computerized online program curriculum, and periodically submitting their work. Now they'll still have contact with the school. The school's still going to reach out, touch base with them periodically. They will have to upload their assignments or complete their quizzes and go through their work in their program, and our system will tabulate that. But they won't have that necessarily day-to-day interactive face-to-face, whether that's live in person or whether that's via the computer. They won't have that specific model, but it still will be a standard curriculum. So those are our three options that we put out to families.
Well, Dr. Gilliam, one of the first thing that our students see is our wonderful bus drivers, our transportation department. We have an excellent transportation department, and let's start there. That's the first thing that children see in the morning. What is going to look different as far as transportation?
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, we will have reduced numbers of students on buses. Now, it's not going to be significantly reduced. I don't want to mislead anyone or not be very transparent with the public. But when you look at the number of students who have self-selected options 2 and 3, obviously they don't need bus transportation. And then when we look at the students that self-selected option 1, we ask them to tell us if they chose that in person, whether they would need transportation or not. And a lower percentage of our students in person needed transportation than have made that choice in the past. So we have some parents and families that are sending their students to school, but they're not putting them on the bus, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, that's their choice, and we want families to do what they're comfortable with. But just because of those three pieces, and I'll give you some percentages here. As a district, 70% of our families have chosen in person, and then 30% chose the other two models, and it's really split evenly. About 15% chose interactive, and about 15% chose the independent distance learning. So because of that, we anticipate seeing fewer students on buses. Exactly how many, we don't know. Worked with our transportation folks on I guess Monday or Tuesday of this week. We pulled our list that we had so far, and they're getting those updated as well, but they're going through the names and seeing which buses students ride. And that's a little more difficult to do than just than even looking at the school piece, because sometimes students they'll stay in the same school and they'll move over the summer. And in this case, we haven't had students on buses since March. So between March and August, we will have several students who have moved that may not have changed schools. So we actually, our bus transportation department actually has to look at that address line of that information to see, okay, this student may be coming off, maybe still going to the same school, but they're off of bus 185 and they're now riding bus 219 because of the neighborhoods. But they're going through those lists. We're going to take a look and see exactly how loaded those buses are and see what we can do to reduce it. So we're trying to limit as much as we can. As well, we've ran through, we've been able to eliminate most of our shuttles, not all of our shuttles, but we've been able to eliminate most of those. We've been able to move a couple of things around. So we have fewer students attending different schools on the same bus. And by attending different schools, you're talking about in the feeder pattern. So for example, a bus might pick up a student that goes to, in some areas of our county, they may pick up a student that goes to Kit Carson, and also that an older student, that middle school student that goes to Madison Middle, and a high school student that goes to Madison Central. As much as possible, we've tried to eliminate that. So we have some high school, middle school runs across our district. We've been able to move those just a little bit or swing those a little bit wider so they pick up some of our older kids. But so we try to reduce that as much as possible, but it will still be, we'll still have that happening to some degree across our district. And when you think about that, and you think about some of these other things we're going to talk about, what we want to do, our goal and the advice by public health officials is to limit the number, I guess the cross mixing or mingling or pieces where students from multiple schools or multiple classrooms and so forth come together. If we can keep students in smaller groups and segregated and with that group, then that is a better, that reduces the chance of community spread or mitigating that chance of enhanced community spread. So so that's been our goal behind this. So that's a couple of things about our buses. Another big important piece with our bus transportation is when students get on that bus, they will have to be wearing a mask because it's really impossible for us to be able to run bus routes without and still provide that social distance and while they're on that bus and that bus is moving. So CDC, our state health officials, all of those folks have looked at this, and they have encouraged us and told us that social distance where we can, but if we can't, like on buses, students will be fine to be on there with masks, and we will take some other precautions. We will load from back to front, and we will unload from front to back. So you don't have students, crossing in the aisleways. And we will have assigned seats based off of that pattern. So so students will be sitting in the seat or next to the same group of students every single day. So if one person were to have a positive test when we do the contact tracing to find out who that individual may have exposed or who may have been exposed to that individual, those in the back of the bus that never come in really close to a student who might be seated in the middle or front of the bus, they've really not come into contact with them, and their chances of contracting COVID-19 from that individual are extremely low, according to our state health officials. And so those are a couple of things that we're doing, loading back to front. Also hand sanitizer. When students get on the bus, they'll be asked to they'll have to take a squirt of hand sanitizer and sanitize their hands as they get on. So those are some precautions that we're taking.
And I do want to give a plug. We've got a couple of local businesses in Richmond that are doing our school masks for each independent school, Madison Middle or Clark Moore's. And I think I read where they're coming up with some smaller masks for our elementary schools. So that's a plus. So
yes,
now they can wear some really cool masks.
Certainly, yes. And we really appreciate our community seems to be getting behind I don't know of anybody that really enjoys wearing a mask, but our community seems to be getting behind that, realizing that this is something we're going to have to do, and it's just a small price to pay to be able to get back to the most normalcy that we can get back to during these times. So we appreciate that.
Well, some of the Richmond Chamber members have given us some great questions. After they get off the bus, they're still wearing their mask. The next point is when they enter the school, they're going to have their temperature taken, correct?
That is correct, yes. Every individual that goes into our school buildings will have to be screened for temperature, yes. And there's CDC guidelines on that piece that we will follow. So everyone gets screened. We have, right now, currently we have 500 thermal scan thermometers in our district ready to go. And so we're going to spread those out across our district so every school can have enough of those out front to be able to get everyone in and out. And our bus times, one of the things we kind of said, and one of the things that's advised is staggered bus times, bus arrival times. So, you don't want, if you have 300 kids on school buses, you don't want all 300 of those descending on school at the same time. But in reality, that's really never happened much in our district. Our buses kind of arrive, they unload, students go in, and another bus pulls up behind and they unload. So that steady stream is very manageable, we feel. A little bit of getting used to at the beginning, but we feel it's very manageable to scan all the temperatures. And it's not just the bus riders. It's every individual that comes into our building has to do that. Teachers and everything. So,
will parents be allowed in?
Yeah.
Volunteers.
Yes, and we're working on some things with that. Obviously, with trying to limit contact as much as possible, that is going to cause us to rethink some of our visitor pieces and make sure that we're able to maintain that safe environment and keep everyone safe. I'm not going to say absolutely no. We want our parents involved, we want our community involved, and there are a lot of different programs and things that rely on that ability to come in. But that will take some time for us to really design the parameters around that, and we may have to push that off a little bit and delay allowing some of those things in. But with that, our principals are already coming up with some great ideas. For example, one of the big parent days in our district is that first day of school, and especially for our kindergarten students. So those parents want to bring that kindergarten student, walk them into their classroom, and sit them down, and that's something that it's important to families, and it's important to our kids. Now, in our current environment, that we don't think that's going to be possible exactly like that. So our principals have thought, different some different ways. What can we do? Can we stagger times, and can we have possibly an outdoor area set up that's kind of like a classroom, and the parents walk the child to that, and that's where they leave, and that's where their class gets started for the day. And then a few minutes later, the teacher takes that group of students, once everyone's there and present, takes them inside the school building. And so the parents were able to say goodbye and put them in their first class that morning, and then exit. And again, we've always staggered our opening day at the kindergarten academy, just so, because there are so many young people and so many students. But those are just a couple of things that are examples of the ways that our parents, our principals, our teachers are coming up with some innovative ideas to meet these challenging times.
When it comes to new students, like we discussed the kindergartners, but there's going to be new students coming in, the new sixth graders coming into middle schools, or the ninth graders coming into high school. They're going to be a little nervous. Are they going to be able this summer to have their tours of the school to be able to walk around?
Yes, we're going to work with them on a couple of things. Exactly how that looks, we haven't ironed that out yet. But yes, our principals feel that that's very important. Now, particularly for those who are coming in for a new transition, those students that are enrolling in our schools from outside of the county or outside of that school, I think our counselors and our principals or teachers are going to try to set up almost like an individual tour for those students. But for our sixth graders going into our middle schools, again, they are putting together. Our principals have already been talking about how they can work that and make it safe and make it doable, but still get that experience that those students need. So it will be a little different than the past. Probably will not be. A lot of our middle schools have done like that open house night where everybody comes in. Well, this is one of those years where we probably won't be able to do that. Our 7th and 8th graders that are returning, we'll do a scheduled pickup, and we'll share information out to them, but we don't need, and some people might say, well, if you can't have that, how can you have school? Well, it's different. It's different in that, students arriving for school, we have our designated parent pickup lines, and we have our bus arrivals, and we can screen all of those people, and it's only students. When we have our open houses, and we love our parents, we love our community, but how many parents and brothers and sisters and everybody that just descends on that. And it's not a fixed scheduled format. We can't put people in groups, and people are intermingling quite a bit, and that's just not the type of thing we need to be doing right now. So folks, bear with us on that one. This will be one of those years we're not able to do that, but we're going to make sure that we take care of those incoming students the same way with our ninth graders going into our high schools. So.
Okay, well, another good question from a chamber member. They want to know, will students be allowed to bring backpacks? Will they still be bringing in wipes, paper towels, those type of things? And will the school hours be different this year?
Okay, so a few things there. Let me go to the school hours first. I don't anticipate our school hours changing. We do have to, we put in we have a fixed bill schedule essentially with the state. As long as we're having in-person classes, we have to have that piece. And so the daily times that classes meet for in-person will not vary much at all from previous years. Now, I do know that different schools are using different things, different schedules, because scheduling is a site-based council decision. And so each school sets their, as a district, we set what days students are going to come and how they're going to get there, and where they're going to be and how they're going to be. But once they arrive at that campus, the school makes the decisions of what that day looks like for that individual student. So, so when we talk about that piece, that's going to come down to our individual school plans, And those simply aren't ready yet because our schools are just now figuring out which students are in which of those instructional delivery methods. But so the day won't necessarily change, but when you talk about a bell schedule and what students are doing, a couple of concerns that we've heard, because there's a lot of information out there, okay? There's a lot of information from different districts that are saying different things, and state people and people speculating, and information coming from the from a federal level. But I think one concern that some folks have is, are my students going to go to the school building and be confined to one space all day long? And we're going to try our best for that not to happen. And I don't anticipate it happening at all. Students are still going to move around. Now, but it will be different than past. If you look at particular middle schools and high schools, those are designed for, just the design of the schedule is for all of the students to come to school, and then we separate them into a first period class, and they all go out to first period class, and then an hour later they all come back together, and we sort them into a second period class, and they go back out. And so there's a lot of mingling and cross mingling, and one individual will touch or come into contact with lots of different individuals. So we had to try to mitigate that piece. So we have restricted some schedules. In some areas, we have teachers rotating rather than students rotating in some of our school plans. But our students will still not be confined to that one room. Our teachers love our kids, and they're going to take care of those kids. And they're looking for ways to, okay, I can take my class outside for a little while. I can take my class. We're still going to have opportunities to take students to the gym, to take them to different parts of the building and get them out and getting them moving. Our high schools are looking to go to probably basically it's an AV block, 6-period AV block. So they would go to first period, third period, and fifth period on one day, and then periods 2, 4, and 6 the next day. And that just, the main reason for that is obviously it reduces those numbers of class changes. When you get into our high schools and you have large numbers of students, those class changes, students are coming in contact with each other. So by reducing that number, we will be able, still, you'll have the kids in the hallway, but we will be able to elongate those class change times and spread that out so we can stagger those kids, so we can stagger our students. And so we might dismiss a couple classes at a time and let them move down the hall to where they're going in a couple more classes, so we don't have the piles of students. In order to do that, it takes a little bit longer, so that so we can't do that as many times during the day. And let me hit that real quick. Hallway space.
And lockers. They want
lockers. Okay. Lockers, we will probably not use lockers to begin the school year. Okay. And I know students have personal possessions. This kind of goes back to that backpack question as well. Students still be able to bring their personal possessions. They're going to have their seat in their area that they'll be able to leave that in. The backpack question, I haven't really thought about that, but I'm sure our schools, individual school plans have. I don't anticipate, I don't really think that backpacks have been addressed in any of the CDC guidance, and I would speculate that most of our schools would probably still allow that. But again, that would be a school decision based off of those school plans. So back to the hallways real quickly. Our hallway space, some things that we can do with it. Again, stagger our class times. Fewer students in school to start with, because 30% of them take an online piece. And then we're also working on some online options, online schedule options for our high schools. So our numbers, particularly with our junior and senior classes on campus every day, we anticipate that to drop even more than what we're already going to see. So so it will be a reduced student load in during those class changes. And when you also look at the space, and I will take Madison Central for example. We pulled up I sent one of our maintenance guys over to measure the hallways at Madison Central. How much hallway space do we have? How many? We know we get all the kids in there in between, and we talk about the crowded hallways, but there are over 50,000 square feet of hallway space in Madison Central. Okay, so if you put that in perspective, in order to social distance, 6 feet all the way around, if every person has a 6 by 6 square that they can stay in, we'd all be 6 feet away. That's 36 square feet per person. So, we can get 1,200 people in the hallways at Madison Central spaced out. Now, the reality is we know that, everybody ends up going through a particular, has to fit through a door. So we know that's, it's not that easy, but at the same time, it's not a mathematical impossibility to get everyone out. But during class change time, they will be needing to wear their mask. If students are up and moving, they need to have their mask on, okay? But once they're seated and in school, in their classroom and seated, they can take that mask off. And as long as they're 6 feet away from people. We may have circumstance where we ask a couple students to work together, or they may work together and they may have to talk to the teacher, slip the mask on, have that conversation, return to your seat, pull the mask off. We anticipate that students will spend the majority of their day unmasked. If you look at a 6.5, 7 hour school day, they're going to spend most of that time unmasked.
So one of the questions from a chamber member wants to know, will students be able to do band this year? It's a very popular sport, especially in middle schools. They're just learning. Will they be able to do that with their new instruments?
I certainly hope so, because right now, as we speak, I believe the Madison Central Band is at Madison Central working
They
out.
are. I saw them this morning.
So yes, we will have band. Now, with that, those band directors are taking certainly some precautions. And for example, both of our high school band directors came in to me very early, probably at the end of the day, and talked to me about their plans that they had, and they're following the precautions that are recommended. So Madison Central's got a huge band. Mr. Jaggy has broken those down into subgroups of about 10 kids, and those 10 kids work together and stay together and do their thing together. So if one of them were to test positive, they're only impacting those other 9 in that group. They're not in the whole 300 or 400 or whatever. So that's little things like that. During the summer band practices, traditionally the band boosters have always come together and they feed the kids and do all that. That looks a lot different now. When they do feed the students, they're bringing in boxed lunches and segregating it into the groups, so they can just come over, pick their lunch up from just their group of 10. So little things like that. Now, the KMEA, Kentucky Music Educators Association, they released guidance earlier this week regarding music education and some precautions that they can take. And also, there was a big study done on the aerosol spray, and that's the big thing that we're having to deal with this. And that's the purpose for the mask, is the aerosol that comes out of your mouth when you breathe or talk or whatever. The particles that are in that, there are virus particles in that, and other people breathing that. So this is an airborne virus. Other people breathing that, and obviously I'm not a medical professional, so I'm just giving you the information that they have shared multiple times with me. But people breathing in that aerosol is what puts them at danger. And obviously, if any type of our music programs, singing, when you sing, you project more. So there is people are playing an instrument. If they're blowing on a trumpet, then they're have that potential for putting more aerosol spray out. And so KMEA, they've done some. They've come out with some guidelines, and as well, there was a university study that was done recently. I forget which university it was, but a university did an extensive study on the aerosol spray with musical instruments. And there's it wasn't as much as they originally thought that you would think just by imagining, but also they looked at some ways to mitigate that, and our band directors will be putting that in place. So for example, a trumpet, putting something, just a nylon stocking over the end of that trumpet will help reduce the aerosol spray that comes out of it. And then we're looking at how we can move those folks into larger spaces or break those groups down so we don't have large numbers of those kids. So all of that to say, yes, band, and they have some good precautions in place, and we're going to take those. But music education is extremely important to our kids in Madison County. We want to make sure that we provide those opportunities if possible.
Well, not only are parents worried about their students in band, but they're also worried about all the extracurricular activities that are out there, including football season, soccer season, archery. People want to have the sport this coming fall. So will it happen? I know football's already practicing. I believe soccer's practicing. What's going on? Tell us.
All right. Well, when you look at the high school sports and middle school sports, those are governed by the Kentucky High School Athletic Association. They put out guidelines. They also put out limitations, season restrictions, and we started returning to some participation a few weeks ago, but that was limited. It was essentially just some workouts, and we did have to break those folks down into small groups. It had to be 10 or less. We had to take temperatures. We had to do a lot of precautions, and one big thing that impacted that, their ability to actually practice as such, their ability to practice was extremely limited because they were not allowed to share equipment or share balls. So when you look at, you take, for example, a typical football practice, you have linemen hitting sleds, and you have guys going up against each other, and you have quarterbacks throwing balls to receivers. Basketball, you have guys shooting, rebounding, and defending each other. Those types of things can happen under current guidelines. Those dates have been pushed back. Now, in some of our individual sports like cross country and golf, a student can go out and play golf and really not come into any contact, any physical contact, get within 6 feet of anybody else if they don't want to. So the KHSAA has set up different guidelines for different sports and different sports activities. But they have recently, just the other day, pushed that back a little bit in terms of what they're going to allow and when they're going to allow it. So they are just like everyone else. You're kind of in a wait and see. You see the NCAA right now. They keep pushing things back. 6 weeks ago, NCAA was saying, we plan on having football in the fall. And then they pushed back the start date. And now they've limited it to only in-conference play. And now individual conferences are making those decisions. And a few of those have already decided to cancel. So we are hoping that we're able to have those. And again, we're going to wait for that guidance from the KHSAA. But because not only are sports important, but those sporting events are such an important part of this community and school. You look at a Friday night football, there's a lot of people there, a big portion of which honestly don't come to watch the football. They come to see the friends, and they come to watch the band or watch the dance team or just to see other people in the stands, the cheerleaders, the different folks. So it's more of a social event than it is a sporting spectator event. But very important to our community, very important to our schools, and it's what makes school a school community and make school fun for kids. And so we hope to be able to have that.
I want to stress how important it was early on that our coaches had to give you guidelines, safety procedures, different protocols, not just to you, but they had to turn it in, and they're strict guidelines, and they're having to follow it.
Yes, we have several things in place. Like I said, the biggest one there is breaking those students down, and
right.
There was guidance on a mask, and here's what I told our coach and I told our principals and ADs in our middle schools and high schools. If your coaches are around kids, they're wearing a mask. That's a non-negotiable. If they're not ready to wear a mask, they're not ready to be around their kids, and so. So they've done that. I had no issues with that whatsoever. If one of them hasn't done that, I didn't find out about it. Nobody's told me about it. But I believe every time I've been around, and I've been to both of our high schools and some to our middle schools, but I've been around both of our high schools, several occasions where our athletes have been there. our coach has been massive and been doing a great job. And most of the players had them on it at that time. It was pre this most recent piece, but that taking the temperatures, doing the screenings daily, and then keeping everybody separated is a big part of that. So they've done a great job, and we appreciate our coaches. And that was, one of the things that we talked about as school closed out last year. The importance of those folks, our coaches and our extracurricular people, even if some of these sports don't actually participate this fall, our coaches have still been working with their kids, and our coaches have great relationships with their kids, and our coaches have done a lot for our kids, regardless of whether they actually ever step foot on that field and play a game. And we realize that, we want to value that, and so we've supported our coaches through this entire piece as well. And we thank them for what they've done, and our parents as well. I couldn't imagine being the president of the Boosters Club right now. I mean, how you raise money?
Oh my gosh!
What are you raising money for?
Right.
So that's a challenge too. We realize that, and we just thank everyone for being as involved as they are. So appreciate it.
And the KHSAA, they keep saying, wear your mask, because if you wear your mask, chances are we'll get to have football and all these other sporting events. So wear your mask. Let's turn it over to food service. Let's talk about lunch. It's going to look a little different.
Yes, it is. Again, we can't bring a lot of people into a space, and so our traditional way of doing lunch is to have 5 or 6 classes at a time come into a cafeteria. And it's in our elementary and our middles and highs. It's even more than that. But they come in and everybody stands in a lunch line and everybody gets their food, and they sit down at tables that where you're pretty much shoulder to shoulder with other people. We can't do that. And there's no way to mask and eat lunch. So realizing those things, we have to rethink that piece just a little bit. So the guidance that's been given, the recommendations that's been given, and probably this logistical piece is just to have students eat in their classrooms. Now, when we say that, we are aware of the kid being in the same room all day. Lunch is a nice break. For a lot of people, that was their favorite subject in school was lunch. So, but the students being able to, our teachers are going to be aware of that. They're going to try to get students outside, when the weather's nice. They may choose some alternate locations, and our food service staff, I think most of the folks across our county know how awesome our food service staff is, and Mr. Anderson's done such a great job working with them. When we shut down last year, of course, you look at for the last several years, our breakfast numbers, our lunch participation numbers, the quality of meals, the number of students that we're feeding in our summertime program, the number of folks we feed in our after-school programs when school was in session was tremendous. Really, hardly, I don't think there's a district in the state that has numbers anywhere close to us in terms of those numbers of meals served to kids, particularly per kid, based on population. So, and then when we had to shut down school at the end of last year, just the great job that those folks did. The first 4 weeks of that, we were serving thousands of meals delivered to homes, and not just lunches, but they were doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And not for 5 days a week, but for 7 days a week. So then after the first few weeks, we stopped the delivery and went to pickup, and they continued that throughout the summer. So so our food service folks, that ability to deliver a good meal to our kids is phenomenal. So we know they're going to be able to do that and be able to continue that. How exactly that will look is going to vary kind of from school to school. But it hasn't been finalized yet, because again, we have to look at numbers and look at where we are and how this might flow through. But what we kind of anticipate is being able for students for most of our students probably to receive their lunch in their classroom. We may have a group that might be able to do it might be part of our kids get a hot meal today, and others get a sack lunch type piece, and then the next day that's flip flop. We might do hot meals every day. We may have some that are, like every other grade level gets to go outside today, and the others eat in. Then tomorrow we flip that. Lots of different options that we're looking at, but it certainly will not be everybody in the cafeteria going through the line and doing that the way that it's always looked.
All right, going back to the 3 options that the
Mhm.
parents were able to vote on.
Yes.
If for some reason a parent chooses to change their mind once the start of school is August the 26th, let's say they change their mind, what happens and what do they need to do?
Okay. So the same way that we said a one-size-fits-all model doesn't work, we also know that folks may need to change. And so we are going to permit our families to make a change. And we do ask that you only do that once. And we also want that change to come at the end of a grading period, or if there's some significant life event. And by significant life event, I'm talking about if a parent has to change his jobs, or we move, or the loss of childcare, or some kind of family situation that changes your ability to meet one of those models. And if that happens, then we will gladly work with you to make that change. That's not a problem. And the only reason we want to we need to restrict that in any way is we have so many dynamics built around our numbers that it's critical that we keep those numbers as consistent as possible. And if they're going to change, we need to have a little bit of time to prepare for that change. So that's the reason for us limiting it at all. But we certainly want to work with folks, and we know these are difficult times on our people, and we know that you may make a choice, and you go through that choice for a while, and it's just not working for whatever reason. And we want to give you an opportunity to change, certainly.
So July 29th,
Mm-hmm.
you guys are going to release more details about the 2 different types, not that going to school learning, but the distance learning.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So what we have right now, the board approved at our last board meeting last week, approved some additional positions to assist with the delivery of our online learning, particularly that option 2, which is the interactive distance learning model. So the board approved those some positions to be able to work with that. And what we believe is that we're going to bring our teachers together. Again, curriculum itself is a school-based decision-making process, so we have to involve our schools, and they have a voice in that. So we have a group of people across our district. They're called e-coaches, which is it's a few teachers from each school make up an e-coach team. And these are existing teachers. They just have an interest in, or they have a specialty with online learning, and they want to be involved in that. And so they serve kind of in an advisory role along with Mr. Muntz, who's our director of instructional technology. And so he's bringing those together. I actually brought them together, I think this morning, and he's got another meeting on Monday with another group of those folks, just to talk through when that model is out there, and we give that description to parents. Now, how can we as a district deliver this model? What's the best way, the most efficient way, where we can utilize resources and we can combine our resources across the district? When we have those positions that were created, how do we use those? How do we allocate those out? How do we assign different roles to different pieces? And so they're going to work over the next week to put that together, and then from that should generate some more a little clearer picture, I think, of what that specifically modeled option 2 looks like. And as soon as we have that, we're going to shoot that out to our families so everybody can see that, and again, to make sure that if that's the model you chose, you're looking at it now, and to make sure that it's still seems like the one that works for your family. And that July 29th is the deadline that I gave him to get that work completed, and so we can get it out to our folks. And he's worked with that team of teachers to make sure that that happens.
So the people that chose option 3, the independent distance learning, as of right now, their students are not allowed to participate in, let's say, basketball or football or all the activities. That could possibly change, right?
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
tell them why. Tell them why.
Okay, so here's the issue with that. We had a lot of questions immediately about participation in extracurriculars when we released our models, and so our response to that was option 1, the in-person, certainly you can. Option 2, you have a schedule and different things. It's virtual learning. Yes, that fits everything that would be required to do that. Option 3, in and of itself, just the way that it was put out there, doesn't necessarily satisfy some of the requirements for those extracurricular activities that are governed by the Kentucky High School Athletic Association. So anything that's a KHSAA sport or sport activity, and as well anything that's governed by KMEA, I think they have the same enrollment requirements. I believe I'd have to check on KMEA, but I believe they do. So there are some enrollment requirements, and that independent distance learning piece. We can't guarantee the way that we described it. There's no way to guarantee that those students would meet those requirements, 2 specific requirements that the KHSAA has, and that is an enrollment piece, enrolled in a member school in 4 hours of instruction, and then doing a weekly grade check. So that independent model in and of itself does not guarantee that. So I'm actually meeting with our secondary principals and middle school and high school principals tomorrow, because those are the levels that are governed. Students can play up, but essentially those are the levels where participation in KHSAA activities occur. And so I'm meeting with them tomorrow to discuss options or our ability. Is there a way to make sure that we can guarantee and satisfy that requirement? And if there is, we have no reason to restrict their students' participation if they're choosing that delivery model, but we have to make sure that we can guarantee that they're able to meet those eligibility requirements. So in other words, we didn't want to tell students, yes, you can participate if you choose that, and then they choose that model, and then we get 2 weeks in, and well, you chose that model and you could have, but you didn't meet the grade check requirement because we didn't have a grade check on you. So how do we put in a grade check that satisfies the requirements of KHSAA? How do we put in the making substantial academic progress on that model to guarantee that student is making academic progress in 4 of the classes, so in at least 4 hours of instruction. So it's basically quantifying that and putting a system to where if we can do that, I feel that we're going to allow those students to participate. We don't want to restrict anyone in extracurricular activities.
So be patient. Everyone needs to be patient. We're working on it. We're working on it. All right, we have just a few minutes left, Superintendent Gilliam, and I want to reassure everyone, and we'll let you finish, telling everyone that our main goal is to keep our students, our teachers, our staff safe. Safety is our #1 priority in all aspects of our district, between the buses, the classrooms, food service, I mean, you name it, all across the board. So let's finish with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, safety is always our top priority in anything we do. I always tell our principals, take care of the kids, we can fix everything else. And so safety is a top priority. And with this situation, that safety piece takes on actually a bigger responsibility, because when we're talking about a communicable disease, as we're dealing with here, a virus, it can, the people who are most at risk, certainly we want to keep our students safe, and certainly we realize the risk there. But you look at all the health data, the people that are most at risk are the people who are their parents and grandparents, who are our staff members in our schools. So we want to make sure that we keep all of those folks safe. And we may be able to mitigate risk for our students, but any risk that their students may be exposed to, they have with this situation, they have it's unique in that they have a chance to take that risk home with them, and that's certainly something we don't want to occur. So that's why we have to take every precaution necessary. We really have to look at everything that we can, and it's not comfortable for us. People like school to be the way school's always been for the most part. In our world, in this world, things are chaotic enough before this pandemic. Things were, and school was the one piece that was almost kind of a constant in people's lives. We knew that, from August to May, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., kids were in school, and that's what happened. But once this came about, that upset the apple cart, and now we're sitting here, in July, looking at what's it going to look like for even August, September, October. So anytime, during these uncertain times, people look for any type of any piece of certainty they can get their hands on, and everyone's hopeful that school will be able to provide that, and we're going to try our best to provide that certainty, provide that stable environment, but obviously safety is going to be that top priority, and we have to be conscious of our community safety, because it's so much bigger than this. The kids in Madison County, every household in this county is touched by our school system in some way, and we have to realize that, and we have to take the precautions to make sure that we're keeping every family, every community member as safe as possible.
We want to remind everybody to watch our Facebook page, watch our Twitter, watch our YouTube page. You can watch our school board meetings to find out all the details, but check it regularly, because things are changing daily. So stay current on it, and just keep asking questions on all of our social media, or call our school board office. We will have people there that they can help you answer any question that you guys might have.
Absolutely.
And we want to say, other counties may be doing something different, but we want to let people know that we feel like these are the best options. We listen to our students, we listen to our teachers, and we listen to our parents, and this is what's best for them that we heard from, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and we mentioned July the 29th. We should have more information on the online learning piece. A few days after that, I plan on having almost kind of the next phase of our district piece out there, and then within a week or two after that, we should see our individual school plans. So all of that will kind of come together to be the big plan. And what we have so far, additional information, which includes our online options and specific details of online options, and then those individual school plans. So it's all continuing to work. We continue to work every day with other districts, with other superintendents, with our co-ops, and then with our teachers, working with teachers, and then also our district administrators and directors across our district. So we appreciate everyone out there and everything, the support of the community. I couldn't tell you how many texts and emails and phone calls and messages I've got about folks just saying, "Hey, we appreciate what you're doing. Thank you. We're praying for you, and we appreciate that. We're all in this together. We're going to do the best we can." But thank you, and I appreciate it.
Well, Superintendent,
Thank you.
I think you answered so many questions today,
Absolutely.
even things that I wasn't 100% certain about, and hopefully we answered all the questions that everybody had. So, but please stay on our social media pages, because it's changing daily.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I just want to say thank you so much for addressing our chamber members. Dr. Gilliam, Samantha, I knew you guys would knock it out of the park, and you did. And I just want you to know, from a business community standpoint, we have the utmost respect for our school system and for just everything that you guys do for us. And I want to say a special thanks, and I know Dr. Gilliam doesn't need this, but he sent out a letter to the schools, to all of the school employees. and encourage them to shop local and to support the businesses in our community. And I just want to say thank you so much for doing that, because when things are good, our businesses are there to help the school system in any way that we can. And so if there's anything that we can do as far as a community, or as far as a chamber, a business community, to help the schools, please don't hesitate to call us. This is going to be, this was recorded, so we're going to put it on our Facebook page. So everybody on here, I hope you will take the time to share this with all of your friends and families. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you all. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Uh-huh.